Bake it down. Move that around. Bake it down. Bake that down. Get a bit lost here, so I'll just zoom out. And I zoom by holding the Alt key and then the left mouse button, the right mouse button. Sorry. Again, I don't want that color in there. It down. Just rotate that a bit. Rotate it around a little bit more. Move it there like that. Now you can also, if you wanted to change the blending mode while you're working, you can do that. I prefer to do it this way because it's easier for me to see the bits that have been painted and the bits that need to be painted before I start using a blend mode. Just personal preference as to how you prefer to work. A lot of people though like to change the blend mode and then paint with it, and sometimes I'll do that as well, but not when I'm working on a base texture like this, or the underlying part of the texture anyway. Okay, paint you in there like that. Now we'll come around to the other side here, and I'll work from the inside edge out. Like that. Rotate you back around the other way. Bake it down. Bake that down. Bake it down, move the model. You might be asking, why don't you just zoom all the way out and then paint on it so you get more coverage? If I was to zoom out like this and then paint the texture down, when I went to zoom back in again, it's going to be incredibly pixelated, and you don't want that. So to keep some detail in the texture, you've really got to zoom in on the model. Making sure I keep the model angled like this so that I don't get texture stretching happening on the opposite side. Or along the top. Back that down. And even though I'm painting over that underlying texture, you still have to do that render to texture in Max and bake it out so it's a flat map texture for Mari to work with, or for any painting program to work with. The texture has to be flattened using its own UV space for each polygon. Otherwise, if any polygons share a texture UV space, when you paint over one of them, you're going to get a strange thing happening on another part of the model that you didn't expect. So they all really have to be in their own UV space. And that's why you do a render to texture in Max to make sure that that happens before you start painting on any model. Some people will model games, particularly if you're working in games, they will sometimes share UV textures just so that they can reduce the size of their texture maps. It used to be more of a problem than it is these days because video cards now have large amounts of memory, and it's not really an issue as much as it used to be, but it used to be quite an issue if you're in game development. And it still may be if you're working for creating mobile games. So yeah, just something to keep in mind. But even then, you can flatten it out, paint it up as we are now, and if you are creating mobile games where you do need to save on texture size and texture space and memory, you can then render out the texture again and overlap then if you really needed to. So the method is good for either way. Just one more step required if you need to reduce your texture size and render it out for mobile gaming, or you want to reduce your texture size that way, or you need to reduce it that way. Almost back around to the front. Just rotate that around a little bit. A bit on the end here. break that down. I'll zoom back out again now. Have everything covered. Just going to move that over a bit and save that file. Alright, now let's see if changing the layer style will improve it or not, or add some interest or not. No, I don't really like that. Maybe an ad, but it's a bit white. Multiply is interesting. It's picking up a bit of the red, still with a bit of the grey underneath. That might work quite well for what we want, but we're not done yet, so let's add another layer. And let's see here. I think I'll add a bit of dirt to the outside edge, so I'm going to pick an alpha map, maybe like you, or rotate you around. And just zoom in on the model a bit. Something like that. Now this one I don't want to transfer to the top edge, so I am going to go into projection and turn on edge masking. That'll just means I don't have to be quite so meticulous and careful with the texture as I'm painting it, because it's being protected now from accidentally being painted on the top. Maybe they're like that. I'll just paint that in. Rotate that around a bit, get it near that edge. Move the model. Just like that. Just rotate that around a bit. Rotate it a little bit more, maybe not that much. And again, I'm using a lot of these alpha maps with this dirt texture on it, because this object sits outside and it will get a lot of weathering and have a lot of dirt naturally. Rotate that around. And by doing each individual piece this way, you have a lot more control over what the final texture is going to look like. It's strange, why did it do that? Yeah, you'll have a lot more control over what the final model piece will look like. If you joined everything together and then tried to paint them individually, which you could do, you're creating more work for yourself unnecessarily. You're always better to break the model down into pieces like this and texture up each piece, and then if later on you can attach them all together in Max before you save the model out for whatever you're going to be using it for. You'll have a much more interesting looking model, and it will be a lot easier to create than trying to do everything in one piece. Okay, back that down. Move it around a little bit. Rotate the texture a bit. And bake it down. Rotate it around. Maybe a bit more like that. And bake that down. Rotate that texture a bit. Bake it down. Bake it down. Okay, bake that down. I think we're almost back at the other end. Bake it down. Bake that down. Rotate it just a little bit. Bake it down. Okay, bake that down. All messed around. Okay, we'll bake that down. Bake you down. And this last piece here on the end. If you want more control over your texture as you're rotating it, the closer to the center, the faster it rotates. So to get more control, hover your mouse over the end here to rotate it Okay, we'll bake that down. Now I just want to find a blending mode that I like for that, so I'm just going to move that texture out of the way. No, I don't like darken, but it may be good with an invert thrown on, but we'll keep going, see what we get. Green might be good, or a light. Maybe just zoom out a bit and have a look. Yeah, maybe a light will look okay. I'm just going to save that. And we're going to export, have a look at it in Max, export flattened, export everything flattened. We're in our stairs folder. We're going to call it, what is this one called? Center ledge, so we'll call it center ledge painted. Export all patches. Oh, I forgot to tell it what I want to save it as, and I want to save it as a .tga. Export all patches. Okay. Again, just make sure that's saved. Now we'll go back into 3D Studio Max and to our material browser. We're going to swap out the material, and that one is called Center Ledge Painted. Okay. We can't see the inside edge, so there's no point painting that. It's it is or can we? No, it's hidden by the tile itself. So all we really want to worry about now is maybe doing a bit of variation on the top here. So let's see, what have we got to work with? Let's rotate that around a bit. And find a texture that might be good. I'm just going to throw a new layer on. Scale it back. I'm just going to move the model a little bit, like that. Rotate that around a bit. Now I'm just going to also change my brush here a little bit. I'm going to feather out the edge a bit more. I'm also going to pull back on the opacity a little so I don't throw down quite as much color at once. Alright, we're working in a new layer. And I'm just going to start hang on, let me undo that. In fact, I'm just going to switch that layer off for a minute and throw on another layer. And go back to my brush again. I'm going to pull the opacity down even more. And I might zoom in on my model a bit more as well. Pardon me. All right. Just rotate that around a bit. Now I'm not completely covering the model with the same texture here. I'm just doing a spot here and there. Throw a bit of variation in the top texture, and we'll change the layer style in just a second. So rotate you around, maybe move it up to a bit more of the grey section, paint a bit in there. Rotate it around, maybe a bit through here, maybe a bit in here. Rotate you around, maybe go back to a bit more of the yellow through here. Rotate you around, maybe go to this side a bit and throw a little in here, maybe a bit there. Rotate you around, maybe a bit more of the yellow again, maybe a bit through here. I'm just going to re-angle myself here. Rotate the texture around, maybe go with a bit more of the grey. And maybe still stick to some of the grey in through here. And go with a bit of yellow through here. Rotate it around, we'll go with some grey in through here. And some of that white in through here. Some of the grey in through here. And we might finish up with some yellow, I think. Through here, and a bit just here on the end. Okay, now let's have a look here. Layers. I'm just going to throw a lighten on there, just pull it in a little, like that. Now I just want to get a texture that I can throw over it to give it a bit of dirt. So this one should be good. We can zoom out a bit on the model here, because this is a dirt texture and it won't be so noticeable. So we can zoom out and not have to get so close to the model. Let's just let me work from this outside edge, I think. Actually, no, I'll work from the inside edge again, like that. Just rotate that around so it's following the line of the model a bit more. I'm just going to paint over the top of it like that. That, bake that down. rotate it around a bit, paint over, rotate, paint over. Okay, paint over there like that, rotate it around a little, paint over there. Okay, rotate it around a bit, and paint over there. Bake that down, rotate, like that, rotate, bake, move the model, like that. Again, I want to make sure I'm coming at it from the inside edge, like that. Rotate that around, paint it down, bake it down, paint that down, rotate it around, move it down, and paint it down. Okay. I'm just going to move that out of the way, and we're going to play with the blending mode again. We may throw a light on it and just pull it back a little. That's none, that's full. We'll just pull it back a little bit. And I'm just going to turn off edge masking so I can get a better look at the model. Like that. Alright. Let's just save that. And export flattened, export everything flattened, and center edge painted, that's the one we want. Yes, we're going to overwrite the file. Alright, we'll go back into Max. What did it do there? Oh, wrong button. Okay, let me just quickly go back into Mari because it looked like it didn't export properly. I'm going to get rid of that layer, go back up to the top. Export all layers flattened. Single edge painted.tga, and we're in the right folder. Yes, okay. Yes, overwrite. Single edge painted. Okay, just needed to be refreshed. All right. Let me just deselect that for a minute. It's better than the blue that we had there before. Okay. Alright, so we still have to texture up the outside of the terrace here, where this sandstone texture is at the moment, which we're using as our base texture. And I may still bring out a bit more white in these top tile sections. I still think it needs a little more white, a little less yellow, just in spots. So what we'll do is we'll just save our max file here. Yeah, so I think we'll start working on dirtying up the bottom of the terrace where the sandstone walls are, and lighten up the top tiles a little more. Just throw a bit more white in parts of them. I'm going to finish there for today, guys. I hope you got something out of it and you enjoyed the stream. Remember, all of my streams, if you missed them, I put up on my YouTube channel. The link is down the bottom underneath of the social media section on Twitch. If you want to know when I'm streaming, I stream weekdays from 5 p.m. in the United States at Pacific time. Or also, if you keep an eye on my Twitter page at PhilDoes3D, you'll I always post there just before I start streaming, 15 minutes before. So follow my Twitter page or keep an eye on it, and you'll know when I'm on. I'll be back on again tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific time in the US, and we'll continue doing some more work on the model. Thanks for watching, guys. See ya.